Let me tell you something. You ever get a letter that feels like it's vibrating in your hands? Not with fear, but with the wild thrill of knowing the person who sent it just nuked their own life and doesn't have the faintest clue. That was me, 6 a.m., on a Monday, standing there with a fake eviction notice so fresh it was still warm. Toner scent curling off the page, courtesy of Brenda Kessler, the psycho president of our HOA. I mean, the woman literally slid a pile of bogus court documents under my door, like she was the world's dumbest criminal mastermind. And let me tell you, if you want a quick morning laugh, try reading legal threats with misspelled terms, fake signatures, and case numbers ripped straight from someone's imagination. Brenda had been coming after my family for months, always with a new creative flavor of harassment. Made-up violations, invented fines, and last week she actually screamed in my face, "People like you don't belong here. I'll do whatever it takes to remove you." Her words, not mine. But the thing that made my blood buzz, what really gave me a sick electric rush, was how sure Brenda was that she held all the cards. What she didn't know, my wife Sarah was about to become her worst nightmare. Most of the neighbors thought Sarah had some mind-numbing desk job downtown. Nobody guessed she was a federal judge. Imagine thinking you're kicking sand in someone's face, not realizing you just picked a fight with a grizzly bear. What would you do if your HOA Karen tried to forge you out of your home? No, really think about it. Okay, let me back up before you miss the best parts. I'm Henry Rivera. 3 years back, Sarah and I took every dollar we'd saved 20 years as a master electrician right up until a herniated disc knocked me out early and bought a humble ranch house in a place called Sunset Ridge just outside Phoenix. We thought we'd found paradise, 147 houses, retirees, waving kids, playing hockey until sunset, and the scent of barbecue and chlorine drifting through the desert air. HOA fees were reasonable, the old board just kept the place running, and Sarah loved the quiet. That's saying something since she spent her days presiding over million-dollar fraud cases in the U.S. District Court. She craved anonymity, just Sarah the neighbor, not Judge Rivera. For 2 years, everything was perfect. Then Brenda Kessler moved in, a 52-year-old freshly divorced from some Silicon Valley exec rolling through the neighborhood in a white Lexus polished bright enough to blind you. She had the kind of California attitude that made you think she'd been running private security for the Vatican, not just a PTA. People like Brenda folks with too much free time and not enough purpose, they always find something to control. Within a month, she'd snatched the HOA presidency, promising to enhance standards. The way she said enhance, you'd think she was planning a military coup, not mowing lawns. The first board meeting under Brenda went 4 hours. 4. The poor secretary looked like she was about to pass out. From then on, the click of Brenda's designer heels became our local warning siren. Here comes trouble with a clipboard. She hunted for violations like a bloodhound. But what really caught my eye was who she targeted. The Lucy family, 8 years here. Never a problem. The Patels, their only crime family gatherings that, God forbid, required more than 6 cars, and us, the Riveras. Apparently owning a work truck in your own driveway is now a federal offense. 2 weeks into the Brenda regime, I found a note under my wiper unauthorized commercial vehicle display, $75 fine. The letter was so official looking it was almost adorable. But when I checked the bylaws front to back twice, there was no mention of any truck rule. I called Brenda thinking maybe it was a mistake. She gave me the Mr. Rivera. The board interprets standards as needed to maintain our neighborhood's character. If you have concerns, attend the monthly meetings. Yeah, our neighborhood like she'd built it with her own hands. This wasn't about trucks. It was about power and putting people like me in our place. Sarah found me muttering in Spanglish while I was up on the roof installing solar panels. She listened to the whole story and got this look sharp analytical. She started asking questions, board elections, oversight requirements, the sort of details only someone who's been up to their eyeballs in federal cases would know. I should have realized then, Brenda just declared war on the wrong family. Brenda wasn't done. 2 weeks after the truck thing, she fined me for lawn height, said my grass was 2.75 inches tall, a whole quarter inch too much. I stood there in my boxer's mug of coffee going cold, reading this like it was a ransom note from someone who really truly needed a hobby. She even included time-stamped photos and claimed she'd measured with a calibrated device. I didn't know whether to laugh or call for help. But here's the thing about being in construction for 2 decades, when someone's blowing smoke. I hired Carlos Rodriguez, the landscaping pro, for half the neighborhood to take a look. He chuckled, measured the grass, and told me Brenda had measured during drought stress when the grass lays flat. Your lawn's actually 2 inches, Senor Rivera. Turns out Brenda had watered a patch to make the grass stand up just to invent a violation. And that's when it hit me. Always check the rules before fighting authority. I started digging into Arizona, HOA laws, and found a gem. Every HOA board election has to be certified with the county clerk within 30 days. No certification, no legal authority. I checked public records. Brenda's paperwork was missing. Technically, her whole presidency was a joke. Meanwhile, Sarah had me document everything: photos, audio, timestamps. She said to treat it like building a federal case. Smart woman. Things escalated when Mrs. Lucy knocked on our door. She was shaken. Brenda had told her that their cooking smells, her family's incredible Chinese food, were culturally inappropriate. That was a line. I called the Patels, and we started sharing notes. Turns out in 6 months, 43 citations had gone out, 39 to minority families. 4 white families got cited, all for stuff like oil stains or broken fences, the rest of us for being ourselves. That Friday, Brenda called an emergency board meeting to discuss my so-called aggressive behavior. She scheduled it for the same night Sarah had her federal court admin meeting, which would have been perfect if Mrs. Lucy hadn't overheard and warned the rest of us. Brenda set up the clubhouse like her own courtroom, made a speech about my hostility, and tried to wave off all my evidence, the real bylaws, Carlos's measurements. But the board treasurer, Harold Lucy, finally snapped. Brenda, I've read these bylaws 4 times. There's nothing in here about trucks, lawn measurements, or cooking smells. You could feel the mood shift. Brenda tried to hit back, accused me of illegal surveillance because I installed security cameras, claimed I was encouraging frivolous complaints. Mrs. Lucy stepped in, backed up by half the neighborhood, and dropped the bomb. We checked with the county clerk. Your board never filed the election paperwork. You have no authority. Even Mr. Patel, the accountant, confirmed it. Uncertified boards can't collect fines. Brenda, true to form, doubled down. Fine. You people want legal games. I'll take this to federal court. The phrase "you people" hung in the air like poison. But here's what really made my day. She was about to walk herself straight into the kind of trouble that makes headlines. Sarah came home that night with a new level of interest. She asked about every detail, especially Brenda's federal court threats. That was the first time I saw the judge in her flicker to life. If she tries federal action, that's not just a bad idea. That's a federal crime. 3 days later, Brenda mailed out ultimatums. Every family she'd targeted got threats of eviction via appropriate court channels. Our phones blew up. Can she do this? People asked. Hell no, but fear makes people irrational. We held a meeting, 18 families in our backyard, swapping horror stories. Maria Gonzalez shared that Brenda fined her for excessive cultural displays at her daughter's quinceañera. Mr. Kim got cited for foreign language noise pollution in his own yard. White neighbors had raucous parties and dead lawns, no citations. The real punch came when Mr. Patel presented the financials. Brenda had collected $4,800 in illegal fines and was funneling money into a personal account. Not just harassment, embezzlement. That's when Janet Peterson, one of Brenda's original supporters, showed up, shaken, almost in tears. Brenda asked me today about final solutions for problematic residents. She wants to pursue legal action to permanently remove certain families. The words "final solutions" sucked the air out of the room. And then Janet showed us a text. Brenda was plotting to file federal cases, specifically in Judge Rivera's court, believing she'd find a sympathetic judge. At that moment, everything clicked. Brenda was planning to forge my wife's signature, using her authority to push her agenda. Sarah, when I told her, went ice cold. She's planning to use my court for housing discrimination, and she thinks I'll support her. That night, our kitchen turned into a war room. Sarah laid out every document, every recording color-coded and cross-referenced. Henry, sit down. We need to discuss Brenda Kessler's federal court plans. She pointed out the statistical chance, over 70%, that any housing case filed would land right on her desk. She's about to commit federal document fraud in my courtroom, targeting my family, forging my signature. Sarah explained it all. Brenda's actions weren't just neighborhood drama. They were federal civil rights violations, document forgery and mail fraud, each carrying years in prison. We document everything, let her commit the crimes, then hand it over to prosecutors. I'll recuse myself, but this is bigger than us now. We gotta work. Cameras everywhere, documentation guides for all the families. Arizona is a one-party consent state. We could record every interaction. Mr. Patel managed a shared Google Drive organizing every bogus citation, every recording. The net was set. Janet called with more intel. Brenda wanted help making her fake documents look real. The irony, she was preparing to impress the very judge she planned to impersonate. By Thursday, everyone was ready. Sarah coached me when Brenda serves those papers, looked terrified. Only total confidence would make her commit the final crime. Monday morning, 6:17 a.m., caught in glorious 4K. Brenda tiptoed up, slid the official envelope under our door. Federal District Court for the District of Arizona, bold letters, case number that just happened to be Brenda's birthday, with Sarah's initials tacked on. Signed, Sarah Rivera, United States District Judge. She even tried to copy the seal. And here's where it went from crazy to Shakespearean. Brenda demanded $2,400 in federal violations, threatened eviction. Within 72 hours, claimed Judge Rivera had personally ordered our removal for community disruption. She forged a federal judge's signature to evict that judge's own family, claiming the judge herself supported ethnic cleansing. It was so insane I almost choked laughing. I called the courthouse, played my role as the terrified homeowner. Sir, we have no case filed under that number. Judge Rivera hasn't issued any eviction orders this month. The clerk was confused, maybe a little concerned. If someone's forging federal documents, that's a serious federal crime. Contact the FBI. Turns out Brenda had mailed identical forgeries to every minority family, 12 in all. That afternoon, she called a neighborhood meeting to announce her federal court victory, passing out fake orders to everyone. Local news was there. But the special guest was Assistant U.S. Attorney Rebecca Martinez, sitting quietly in the back with a wire. Brenda, oblivious, waved the forgeries, read off our names, announced our evictions, and bragged about studying Judge Rivera's previous decisions for accuracy. She confessed to premeditated fraud on camera in front of 90 witnesses and the woman who would soon prosecute her. The next morning, 2 FBI agents and Martinez rang our bell. Sarah answered in her robes. She'd just come from court. The agents' eyes went wide when they saw her. Your Honor, we have a situation involving forged documents with your signature. They sat in our kitchen as Sarah explained each forgery, each threat, each violation. You forged my name to justify racism, she asked, eyes blazing. Sarah told them arrest her today, not next week. Today. Martinez suggested a public arrest at Brenda's meeting that afternoon. Sarah's smile could have cut glass. Make it educational. At 3 p.m., the clubhouse was packed. Brenda announced compliance celebration, passed out deportation notices. That's when the FBI stormed in. Brenda Kessler, you're under arrest for federal document fraud, impersonating federal officers, and civil rights violations. The silence was so deep you could hear heartbeats. Brenda, caught mid-speech, collapsed into a chair when Sarah, still in robes, walked in. You forged my signature. You impersonated my court. You claimed I supported everything I've spent my career fighting. Brenda pled guilty to 14 federal felonies, avoiding a trial only because the evidence was overwhelming. She got 32 months in prison, 3 years probation, and a $127,000 restitution order. Her Lexus and house got sold off to pay victims. The story went viral, national news, social media memes, 60 Minutes, the works. Sarah was on CNN talking about HOA abuse and justice. Brenda became the face of everything wrong with unchecked HOA power. But the real win was how our neighborhood changed. Mrs. Lucy, now HOA president, started the Sunset Ridge Diversity Council. Fines refunded cultural festivals every month, kids learning Spanish, Hindi, and Mandarin by the pool. We set up a scholarship in Brenda's name for students studying civil rights law, funded by her restitution. My solar business exploded. Sarah wrote a legal guide to fighting HOA abuse. Law schools made it required reading. Sometimes justice is more than just punishment. It's about building something beautiful from the ashes. Even after Brenda got out, I saw her driving by, once staring at the houses she tried to control, now filled with proud, laughing families. My truck still sits in the driveway. Sarah wears t-shirts that say federal judge in a dozen languages. And our evenings, they're filled with the smells and sounds of every culture Brenda tried to erase. But here's the thing, I keep coming back to this question. How many Brendas are out there hiding behind rules, thinking nobody's watching? Where's the line between authority and abuse? What would you do if someone came after your home with nothing but bigotry and a printer? Drop your thoughts below, share your stories, your lines in the sand. Let's talk about what justice really looks like, because sometimes the only way to fix what's broken is to drag it into the light and build something better.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.